Hi, welcome to Crime Clueless. We're your hosts. I'm Jenna.
And I'm Lara.
I'm Krista.
And I'm Kayla.
We are back with part 2 of Phoebe's case. We are going to jump right in because we cannot wait to find out what happens, right, ladies?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not all the same person, I swear. Sometimes it sounds like it, though.
That was very
Really
in
does.
unison.
That was like the same tone, too.
That was very, I said that wrong.
What did you
That was
didn't
a
even
very
hear you.
that was very
In
in
unison?
in
unison?
unison. Is
Yeah, that's right.
that what I said?
I don't know.
I was trying to say unison, but that's like sleep medicine.
That's not the same.
No, it's not the same.
That one would be wrong. Yes.
Yes.
We were very in sync.
There you go.
We can't stop.
We don't spend a lot of time together.
No, not at all. Oh, okay. The fun is over. We're diving into this.
Oh, it's still fun.
Yeah, it is. It's good.
No more fun, anyone.
No, we're to the investigation
Yeah.
part.
We
Yeah.
gotta
We get to
answer all of
play
these questions and
Yeah, we
dive
get to
right
play armchair detective now.
in. A little bit.
Favorite activity.
Yes.
So fun.
Mm.
We're all very good at it too. So that's
I know
even
you
more
guys
fun.
have good questions. You have things I didn't even think to look up, which is embarrassing. All right. So if you remember, we're talking about Phoebe Handsjuk. We are in Australia. We have talked about how after just 5 days, police department, investigators, detectives decided case closed. This was either an accident or possibly Phoebe meant to, but we are saying conclusively that there was no foul play and no one else involved. This just does not sit right with anybody. We talked about how Phoebe's grandfather, Lorne, is a retired police detective. He found this really hard to take because it just doesn't make sense. And he couldn't get himself to do those mental gymnastics that we mentioned. So if you'll remember, we have Phoebe's apartment on the 12th floor, and then we have where she was found, which was on the ground floor. And we'll talk about those a little bit more, but we've already described what was found in the apartment. We had broken glass shards, small drops of blood in a few places, like by the computer, the mouse pad, on the door frame. We had Phoebe's personal items left behind, her keys, bag, the Nokia phone that she had. We had the candles, the notes on the bed, the pictures. And then on the ground floor where Phoebe was found, there was a lot of blood, her foot nearly being amputated, and then other things that had come down, presumably after she had. So the first big question, how did Phoebe get into that chute? Because everything hinges on that. The trash chute on the 12th floor was inside a little room near the elevators. It's basically like those in many high-rises. There's a hatch door in the wall that opens to the chute dropping to the bins below. This hatch was about 3 feet off the floor. The opening diameter was about 53 centimeters or 21 inches. Not huge, but big enough for a slim, athletic person to slide through if positioned right. That part is key, positioned just right. Investigators should have immediately asked, is it physically possible for a person to put themselves into this thing feet first, especially if they're intoxicated or having taken Ambien? Guess what? The police didn't do a reenactment. They didn't do a test. They just assumed it was doable. Later, other people did the tests, journalists, TV shows, Phoebe's family. The results? It's really difficult to get in that chute on your own. A reenactment by Channel 9's Under Investigation had people struggle mightily to shimmy in, even sober. Phoebe's grandfather, Lorne, worked with a friend of Phoebe's who had a similar build and asked her to try it. They eventually managed, but confirmed that it was hard, especially if you're considering being impaired and trying to do it. Think about it. To go feet first, you basically have to hoist yourself up to get your legs in the opening backwards. One podcast described it as trying to enter like you're going down a water slide. You would need to sit on the edge, legs in, and push off. But the chute doors are usually hinged and swing shut automatically. In a reenactment on Phoebe's fall, an exact replica chute was used. The person had to keep the chute door open with one hand or have someone else hold it to avoid it closing on them. It took some really careful maneuvering. If it slammed shut on your arms or fingers while you're crawling in, you would likely get injuries on your hands. And so here's the kicker. Phoebe had no injuries on her hands or forearms, no bruises, no cuts there. So if she went alone, how did she avoid smashing her fingers in that heavy chute door? It's almost like someone would have had to hold it open for her, which gives me chills to think about.
Yeah.
Also, her shoulders and arms did have bruises, particularly on the elbows and the inner arms. The initial explanation by authorities was that those bruises happened as she was bumping and bracing herself during the fall, like hitting against the walls of the chute with her arms out, trying to slow her descent. But wait, earlier they suggested she went down with arms above her head. Basically, think like somebody that's diving into something,
Yeah.
arms above their head to fit. Really, you can't have it both ways. Either her arms were above her head, no elbow bruising from impact in that case, or they were out to the side. But then how did she even get in the chute opening with arms out? The physics there just don't line up.
If her arms were down by her side, then there wouldn't really be a way for her to brace herself because,
They'd be
I mean,
pinned.
yeah, given
Mhm.
how skinny that is, you'd have to have your arms down by your side. So if anything, her arms would have had to have been up
Right.
and maybe, don't mind me reenacting over here, maybe trying to grab onto something like above her head. But I still don't feel like there's enough space for her arms to be out at all.
No.
Like her elbows bent at like a 90-degree
No.
angle or anything.
Mm-hmm.
That just seems implausible. I mean,
had
bruises would make more sense if someone's grabbing your arm and pulling you.
right.
Well, because also to get those, you would have to be like frantically
Yeah.
clambering, trying to get your arms up the sides. But if you look at like shirt measurements across, 20 is a fairly normal. We're saying her arm is only half an inch off. Like that's just not, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
No. I had an Amazon box that I measured that was about 21 inches. And I was like trying to put it over Mila to see. I mean, it would be really difficult,
Mm-hmm.
even for her. And she's, much shorter than Phoebe was, which we'll talk about. And Phoebe was athletic. She was slim. She was, I think they say like 130, but it just like your bone structure
Mm-hmm.
to fit in that is difficult. The coroner later came up with a theory that maybe she controlled her fall by pressing her hands and feet on the chute walls to slow herself. But that is both physically unlikely and not supported by the evidence. Those chute walls were filthy, yet Phoebe's clothes and hands weren't covered in dirt, grime, anything, as they would be if she'd been friction sliding down 12 stories. And again, no hand trauma. Her body mostly showed injuries consistent with a free fall into the compactor, not a careful slide. Plus, get this bizarre detail. When Phoebe was found, her jeans were pulled down around her knees, like her pants had been partially removed or had fallen down during the fall. The zipper wasn't broken or anything. They were just inexplicably around her lower legs. Now, if she went feet first, gravity and the force of moving downward should, if anything,
Yeah.
pull them up, not down. Your
No.
waistband, would stay at your waist. Like the leg of the pant might ride up to the knee. Several experts have pointed out that pants ending up around her knees does not make sense for a feet first
No.
drop.
Not at all.
Mm-mm.
Especially not jeans. Like that's not something that's like sweatpants that could maybe once you hit or something move around, but jeans, not really.
Yeah, with like a full zipper and
Yeah.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing,
go
sorry.
ahead.
The only thing I was thinking, like if she was trying to drag herself out of the out and over the thing, maybe it caught and got
that
pulled
could be
down.
too.
Yeah.
But again, like Krista said, jeans are hard to get down when you undo them sometimes.
Right.
But that's something that could have been if she was
Mhm.
dragging herself out and they got caught and pulled.
Yeah, that's true.
So then do they think that maybe, I mean, other experts, do they think she went down head first?
Possibly.
Hmm.
Because it just doesn't make sense.
You mentioned at the start of this, there was missing video cam footage.
Oh, yes. That's coming right.
Oh, okay,
Right
I'll
up.
let you get to that then.
No, I like it because that is a really big piece.
Okay.
I feel like if she had gone head first, though, she wouldn't have had like the broken femur and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
and her foot.
It would have been like an arm.
It would have been
break.
more arm or like
Mhm.
head trauma, right?
Well, unless the injuries came from the compactor part of it, because that,
But if she fell 12 stories into something head first,
right.
she would have had more trauma, like broken neck. I don't think
Mhm.
she could have survived that and climbed out.
And
You
it's
think?
not just like straight down. There are like turns and, what is the word?
It's not like a straight
No,
fall to the like
right.
straight down.
It's not like a straight down slide, like a water slide that's just like straight. It's more one that moves around a little bit, which is another part of how weird it is that she got down all the way with no injuries or like stuff on her hands or arms from being in that chute.
sliding on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's just weird to me to not have more upper body injuries if
Mhm.
she had gone head first. That makes me think she had to have gone feet first.
I mean, that is what they think, that she did go feet first.
Yeah. They don't even want you to slide down the slide with kids on your lap because their leg can catch and break on
Yeah.
slides.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
That makes more sense to me to
Ugh.
have the broken leg
Mm-hmm.
and things like that.
Yep.
But I don't know.
The other possibility is that someone was in there with her.
Down the chute. Is that what you're saying?
No,
Oh.
in the room that she
Oh,
got
yeah.
to.
In the trash compactor room?
Maybe.
Like maybe she didn't go down the thing at all.
Maybe.
Maybe. And was just down at
Or
the
they
bottom.
were waiting for her.
Maybe.
Did they check the chute for like blood or anything?
They didn't really check anything at all.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if she had blood in the apartment from possibly her hand or something, I would think there would at least be a little bit, unless it dried by that point. But
That's the other thing that's confusing is, they're saying there aren't injuries to her hands, but what got cut in the apartment that you would get on the mouse pad or on the computer or on the door frame? I mean,
wouldn't really
maybe
be
your
the bottom
arm,
of your foot.
right? Because you would think that if you're just seeing drops of blood, but I don't know. Unless it was somewhere on her face or something, and she leaned over, or maybe she got it on her hand
Got it and wiped it or
Yeah.
something.
They did describe it as blood droplets.
Yeah, I don't know.
Even if this isn't foul play, a strange anomaly that was never properly explained, and the coroner just kind of hand waved it away, implying maybe the pants got pulled down during her end of life struggle, like out of the compactor room. But witnesses noted it was weird enough to mention as unexplained. It certainly adds to the overall awfulness, horrific of how she was found. If someone else was involved, it could suggest that there was a struggle.
Like if she wasn't trying to just get out of the compactor, but get away from someone and they grabbed to try to keep her back.
Right.
How would she end up in that room though?
Well, someone took her down there is what I was thinking. If she was drinking and the Ambien and someone was like, oh, let's go, could lead her somewhere
Yeah,
where you're less thinking about it.
Is that door locked?
that's what I'm wondering. Because that seems,
Like a room you wouldn't just want.
given how much security on all of the other
Mm-hmm.
aspects of the building, I feel like that would be something that you would need access to get into. But I mean, maybe not, but
Maybe if you live in the building, your key card lets you in there in case, I don't know, you need to throw
with like a
something out.
compactor like that, that seems like such a
It
safety
does.
hazard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If
Right.
it was so, I mean, it cut off her foot, basically.
Yeah,
like
mhm.
you don't
Not
want
a
people
room you
just
want
wandering
kids
in there.
getting into, you know.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about that CCTV footage or lack thereof. You would think in such a mysterious death that investigators would be super thorough. That did not happen. For one, the police failed to secure the CCTV footage from the building's elevators, entrances from that afternoon and evening by the time anyone realized it might be important, which really was just from her family pushing. The footage had been recorded over. So we have no video of what happened between noon and 7 p.m. Let's talk about fingerprints. They checked the garbage chute hatch, like the part where she was going in for prints, and found none. Not Phoebe's, not anyone else's. This chute,
Interesting.
There should have been a lot of fingerprints on there.
yeah, it isn't something that's regularly cleaned. It's pretty dirty. If Phoebe opened that hatch and climbed in, you'd expect at least a partial print or some sort of DNA touch evidence, but it was wiped clean.
Well, also, I feel like you'd find a lot of people's fingerprints on it.
Mm-hmm. Which you would think if
Which would be
everybody's
normal.
using
Yeah.
it,
Mm-hmm.
so why wipe it? And I mean, somebody that's intoxicated is not going to think, let me just wipe my prints off the chute door before I go down.
Or
I
wear
mean,
gloves or something.
mhm,
No.
which she wasn't.
And that means that it would have had to have been wiped after she went in because there's no way that she could have been sitting on it and like turn around and wipe it,
No.
you know? Like,
Right. Without it closing.
Mm-hmm.
so it had to have been wiped after she went down.
Yes. So if it was suicide or an accident, why no prints? If it was foul play, that makes a little bit more sense. Remember the blood drops on the 12th floor? There was a bit of blood found on the floor of the 12th floor, like garbage room, and even on the handle of the chute door.
So
Likely
there was blood on there, but no fingerprints.
Mhm.
So then, yeah, it would have been something on her hand, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
unless somebody else was doing that and got whatever injury she had had on them and got it on the door.
That's true.
Well, that's that answered one of my questions because I was like, maybe the cleaner or people,
Mhm.
housekeeping or whoever's cleaning the building saw blood on there and did clean it. But if blood was found on there, then that's not
Right.
the case.
I mean,
I don't know why you would go.
it doesn't sound like they checked the blood in the apartment for a DNA match. I mean, we don't even really know if it's Phoebe's.
Yeah.
What
She
if
didn't have any cuts on her hand.
Mm-mm.
If they had gotten in a fight, her and aunt or something, and I don't know,
Mhm.
someone threw something or like shattered a glass they were holding, then I
Mhm.
guess it could have been him too.
Right.
Or, whoever, especially if they hit her in the head.
Yeah.
And her head is bleeding and then there's glass and then they maybe they thought they killed her and wanted to get rid of the body.
That's true too.
Right. Okay, so with that blood, like I said, police didn't collect or test it at the time, which gives you this big,
What if?
yeah.
Yeah.
They did test one spot on a door frame in the apartment, and that was Phoebe's blood, but they didn't test any of the others. So the mouse, I mean, he was on the computer.
Yeah.
It shows that he was on doing things and
He was on the computer that had the blood on the mouse and he just left it there.
Yep.
Okay.
the whole thing is just so
Yeah.
Like needed a little bit more investigating.
Did he have cuts
Right.
on his hand?
that's what I'm wondering.
Hmm.
I don't know. And, it could have been his arm
Yeah.
and again, he could have touched, yeah. But we didn't analyze any of that. So we don't know. They didn't check all the trash bags in the compactor for any evidence. If she fell down with, say, a specific bag of garbage, like she was throwing away something, they didn't document which bag came from the 12th floor or try to find out if she was going there for a reason, right? They basically, with everything, just treated it as open and shut, even footprints. There were some dusty footprints reportedly found on the door outside her apartment door, like in the hallway, but they were never identified. They could have been Phoebe's, they could have been someone else's, but no follow-up on that either. It's like they just saw somebody they decided was depressed, had alcohol in her system, and said case closed. We talked about how her blood alcohol was 0.16 and she had traces of Stilnox, which Ambien, in her system. It's such a strong sleeping pill and it can have weird side effects. People on Ambien, which we mentioned in the first one, have been known to sleepwalk, even sleep drive, do odd things in kind of this blackout state. So theoretically, it's not impossible that she could have done something bizarre under this influence, and especially the combination. But typically, people do things they are somewhat familiar with in these states, like eat, drive to a known place, go talk on the phone, something that they do often. Climbing in a trash chute is not a habitual activity that one would do on autopilot.
Mm-hmm.
No.
The coroner and police leaned on the idea that Phoebe was either trying to harm herself or was just so out of her mind that she fell in by accident. They noted she had depression and had expressed self-destructive thoughts before. And indeed, one could imagine in a deeply impaired, perhaps suicidal moment, she might think of some sort of odd exit like that. But we have to square that with the physical realities we just discussed. The difficulty of getting in there, the lack of prints. It's definitely not as simple as someone walking off a ledge or something. It's a very specific, tough act.
Yeah, I think the fell in by accident is just ridiculous.
Laughable.
Yes.
Yes.
Laura and I were both like looking at each other after that.
Well, and even if you fell in by accident, it would be like head first.
Yeah. Or like you get stuck. Oh no, I tripped. But you're not falling all the way down. Like, I don't know. You'd have to get yourself in there.
Unless you threw something, you're trying to grab it. But it's not like something that you just fall into.
No.
I mean, it's similar to what we talked about with the Elisa Lamp case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think there's some parallels between that where they want to say that she just opened it and maybe fell in or jumped in, but logistically, that's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I feel like there should have been more time spent on examining some of those other options.
Yeah.
Especially with it being
agree.
5 days that
Right.
they shut the case.
Also, at least just rule it out. If you're pretty sure it's suicide, but just make sure.
Mm-hmm.
Check down other leads, follow up on DNA evidence, just so that you're absolutely sure that that's what happened and someone doesn't walk free from something.
Yeah.
Unless someone comes from a powerful family that helps get it closed.
There's that.
Yes.
There is that. Let's consider some of the theories more clearly. Before we do that, there's one more piece of forensic evidence, the bruises on Phoebe's body, aside from the catastrophic injuries from the fall. Her foot, her broken leg, the cuts. The autopsy noted various bruises, including on her upper arms. They couldn't make that fit with the fall. It was just too inconsistent. A very experienced forensic pathologist, Dr. Brian Collins, later reviewed the case and said the bruises on her arms looked like grip marks, as if someone forcefully grabbed her by the arms. They could have occurred before she went in the chute. If that's true, it would strongly suggest some kind of altercation or manhandling prior to her going down the chute. Dr. Collins told the Sydney Morning Herald and the Phoebe's Fall podcast that given such unexplained bruises and open finding, even saying it's undetermined would have been the safest ruling rather than outright calling it an accident or suicide.
Is that what, Laura, is that what you said in the first one?
I don't
Bruises
remember.
on the arms?
Oh.
Never mind. I thought you did.
I don't remember. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I was just going to give you credit for.
Yes, I did
agreeing
say
with the
that.
expert.
Yep.
That was me.
Yes.
I mean, even at the beginning of this one, when we were trying to figure out the bruises, like
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
side,
Yeah.
The coroner's counsel, which is the assistant at the inquest, actually recommended an open finding too, because there wasn't enough evidence to conclusively say suicide or accident or foul play. But the coroner himself, Peter White, overruled that and declared it accidental. We have some thoughts about that inquest. It took place in, guess when? 2014, 4 years later. And the coroner's conclusions were, to put it mildly, controversial. Coroner White essentially said no one else was involved, totally exonerating Aunt or any hypothetical person. Phoebe climbed in by herself, likely in a daze, and maybe even tried to climb down inside the chute to reduce the fall. He speculated she kind of repelled or controlled her slide, hence she didn't have worse internal injuries. He basically dismissed a lot of the odd evidence as a coincidence or not meaningful. For example, about the lack of severe internal organ damage, he thought her fall was slowed or partly cushioned, citing her measured height at autopsy seemed a bit shorter, implying no full free fall compression. The family was like, her height appeared shorter because her foot was nearly cut off and her leg was fractured. Measuring a body accurately in that state is tricky. Her actual height was 175 centimeters, not 166 centimeters, as in the autopsy, meaning she likely was compressed by the fall. The coroner ignored the family on that one, which has just got to be infuriating.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of cherry picking to justify this tidy scenario that they're putting out. Lauren, Phoebe's grandfather, later wrote a scathing commentary on the findings, basically calling them extreme speculation, not supported by evidence. For instance, White's notion that Phoebe exerted lateral pressure, pushing on the walls while going down, even the expert Dr. Lynch, he questioned at inquest, didn't support that as likely. And as we mentioned, the grime and the dirtiness inside versus the clean clothes outside discrepancy was glaring.
Yeah. How are you cleaning the inside of a trash chute? You wouldn't. Stuff would definitely be on the edge of that.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Like, how many garbage bags are put in there where there's a rip or a tear and it goes down or
they don't seal the top and things are sloshing. Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely. So why rule it accidental if there was so much doubt? This is where whisperings of privilege and influence come in. Remember, Ant's dad is a former judge and his stepmom, a current judge. There were murmurs explored by the Age journalists in Phoebe's Fall podcast that perhaps investigators tread lightly because of who the boyfriend's family was. One of the Phoebe's Fall reporters, Richard Baker, said, people often, rightly or wrongly, tread a bit lightly around powerful people. You've got to wonder whether that happened here. Did the justice system give Phoebe a fair go? I think it failed. The police investigation certainly was not up to standard, and without accusing anyone of an actual cover-up, it's true that Anthony Hampel was treated as above suspicion from day one. The coroner formally exonerated him in the findings, stating there's no suggestion he was involved. So officially,
Is that normal?
no.
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 Oh.
It's got to be so hard for Phoebe's family.
Yeah.
Because even if he wasn't at fault,
Or not involved at all.
yeah, now they'll never know.
Well, and at least do due process there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. You've got to do the full investigation
Yes.
as much as possible,
Mhm.
not just basically sweep
And that
under a
should
rug.
be standard.
Mhm.
I mean, so many times it's the spouse or the boyfriend. Like,
Mhm.
Mhm.
that should at least be a question. Okay, where were you?
Mhm.
Do you know anything?
Right?
Anything?
Anything. Yep. Pretty frustrating.
Yes.
I'm sure the words are much more, but yeah. But what that means is officially Ant is not a suspect and was not, quote unquote, found to have any hand in Phoebe's death. We have to say that clearly. There is no official evidence that Ant or anyone else harmed Phoebe. He was never charged with anything, and he maintained he'd been at work and came home to the situation with no idea what happened. So legally, it's ruled an accident, case closed. But in the court of public opinion and in the true crime community, this case screams for a deeper look. So, with all the facts and weird details in mind, let's talk about some of those theories and unanswered questions because we've got a bunch. No? Okay, sorry. I thought you were like,
No, I just
Not raising your hand.
sitting here.
okay. Sorry. Let's lay out what could have happened to Phoebe. We have a few scenarios. 1, possibly completed suicide. 2, some sort of accident gone wrong. 3, homicide or foul play. And none of them perfectly fit all the evidence, which is why this case is so perplexing. For number 1, suicide, did Phoebe intentionally climb into the chute on purpose? On the one hand, she was in, a depressed state, low mood, possibly feeling trapped or desperate. She left what could be interpreted as a sort of farewell shrine. She had notes. She was intoxicated pretty heavily, perhaps to get the courage or lose inhibition to do something drastic. Also, recall her strange text the day before about going to the hospital because it was safer there. Some have wondered if that was some sort of veiled cry for help or a sign her mental state was off. If she was feeling suicidal, maybe she thought the garbage chute was a way out. However, suicide by garbage chute is virtually unheard of. It's such a convoluted method. If she truly wanted to die, there are easier ways. Like the apartment had a balcony. She obviously had sleeping pills. She could have overdosed. The chute just seems like such a bizarre choice.
Yeah.
Plus, once she fell, she fought to survive, like crawling to the door. This doesn't scream, I'm trying to end it all.
No, I don't. That one doesn't seem
No,
as plausible.
I don't think so either. And, for her mental state, she was seeing a therapist. She was taking medication to help balance and make sure she was in a good place.
I was thinking that same thing about the chute. They're 12 floors up. It just seems like an extra difficult way if that's what your goal is. I don't know.
Well, and it's not necessarily like a quote unquote sure thing.
That's
Yeah,
what I was
exactly.
just going to say.
And it wasn't. I mean,
No.
Yeah.
she's still.
Yeah.
She could have gotten stuck. There's so many
Which
things
would
that could have gone wrong.
have been horrible.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes.
Like, what if they had to try to get her out of there?
That's the only thing I was thinking. Like, if it was more of like a cry for help, like sometimes people do attempt, but then let people
Mhm.
know and then they can get the help that they need. But they do make an attempt
Mm-hmm.
and then get help as a cry for help, letting others know that they are having more issues than maybe they're letting on.
Mm-hmm.
And so it could be something more like that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem.
Because
I mean, there's so many other ways.
yeah.
Right.
Because she
Like
had to have known the compactor was there at the bottom.
Yeah,
So if it was just an attempt, it just doesn't seem as plausible.
I don't think so either.
How do you know that you can fit all the way through, all the way
Yeah.
down, right?
Yeah.
What if it narrows out in one of the parts or something. Yeah.
Right.
But I guess you kind of know what size of things you do put down. If you put
Yeah,
down
that's true.
a big bag of garbage, I mean, some of the bags of garbage I put out in my can are
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's true.
size.
I mean, there are other ways. If
There are so many other ways.
I don't think that would have been my first thought at all.
Mm-mm.
It just,
No,
I've never heard of that before.
no.
And even if you are in that altered state with like the drinking and the Ambien and things like that, I feel like you would still pick
Mhm.
something more plausible.
Yeah. You know, with her trying to crawl to the door at the end, I mean, of course, that could be instinct kicking in after everything that happened and
Regret.
exactly
regret.
deciding that this isn't the path you want to be on anymore. But it just doesn't align with some of the evidence. There's no suicide note. The scribbles on her various post-its weren't a goodbye, although a lot of cases that are suicide, they don't leave a note, but her family insists that she wasn't suicidal. Depressed, yes, but she had plans for the future. And with that theory, how do we explain the lack of fingerprints? Would she wipe them? No. Also, you know, the pants situation, the bruises, those things just really feel out of place in this scenario.
Mhm.
Theory 2, the accidental misadventure. This is basically what the coroner said. Perhaps Phoebe, you know, very intoxicated with Ambien, decided to take the garbage chute or just do something odd. Maybe she dropped something valuable in the trash and she was trying to retrieve it. Maybe she was climbing in as a prank, which is kind of weird, but they put it out there. Or maybe she was confused. She might have fallen asleep with a lit candle and started maybe a small fire. There's no evidence of this, but, you know, maybe in that state, she thought she had started a fire or that she was smelling one from her candle. Some have theorized that she might have been leaning into the chute to dispose of trash and lost her balance, but that doesn't really explain going in feet first. And it's just hard to imagine how that's by accident.
Yeah.
It's not like a big open well that you can just jump into. You have to deliberately get into it, right?
If you fall in at that, if you are putting garbage in there and you fall in, that would be head first.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any way, unless it was stuck and she's like trying to use her foot to like stomp on it. But even then, like, how do you get both feet up there?
Mm-hmm.
And how are there no fingerprints?
Yeah, there would be fingerprints.
That's the thing that gets me too. If she accidentally did this accidental fall, her fingerprints would still be on there from opening it.
Yes.
Right.
Or if it was accidental and someone went to go look for her, followed the trail and saw and was like, oh crap, I'm going to get blamed for that.
Oh,
And wipe everything down. I don't know.
The blood was still on there.
Right. What if he grabbed it to open it up and like look?
Yeah.
And then was like, oh crap, like I could get blamed for this.
Mm-hmm.
Scrubbed it. I don't know.
Maybe.
That's the only way that I could think of, is if she was alone when it happened, that they got wiped off after.
Yeah, that's true.
So something interesting, I was curious just kind of to see if I could find like picture of
The chute.
yeah. One picture looks like this where it opens up.
Oh, okay.
But then the pictures of them trying to recreate it are like this.
That's the one.
That's what it looks. The one from Friends looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the picture that's of the building.
That might have been a different floor
Maybe.
or like part of it and then it's on the wall. But everyone that I've seen is on the wall and then it's like the hinge door that pulls out. It just seems really hard. Like I was trying to think, could I get one leg up 3 feet? She is a little bit taller than me, but
I was like, are you doing
how do you
down dog and then a handstand? Like at your feet? Like,
oh, there you
I
go.
don't know.
But what holds the door open while you do it?
Your shoe.
Perplexed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I do think if you drop something valuable in there, you go to the lobby, You tell them what just happened and you get help.
Yeah.
Getting it out. Like you
But
don't.
You have to think too, like that's what you would do in a normal state of mind.
True.
Right.
She's also on Ambien and very intoxicated.
Yeah.
She may not be thinking that clearly.
But I still think you would try to reach in with your arm.
Yes.
Grab it.
I think if she were reaching into something, if she had dropped something, you would go in with your arm and possibly fall in head first.
Yeah.
I can't imagine you've accidentally put something in there and you try to go in feet first.
Yeah.
That makes no sense.
Unless you're
Unless
like, oh, I'll go down after it.
I'll shimmy down after it.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I guess you could do that
Take it as a slide to get down there and catch it.
to catch up
I
to
could
it.
see like the reasoning behind it if you were like not thinking clearly, but it still just seems so hard to get it open, get your body in there, and then also slide all the way down.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah. Those are good points. And, the more that you think through those things, it just really does not make sense.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense. And it's hard to piece things together knowing what her mind could have been
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
because she wasn't in her best state of mind at that time. So it's hard to know what she might have been thinking or been doing if it wasn't foul play.
Yeah.
If only they had investigated more so that we had more evidence to go off of, right?
And give
Yeah.
her family some closure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really hard to figure out how you would go fully in feet first
Yeah.
by accident.
Yeah.
It's, and it's not like this big open wall. You have to deliberately get into it. A hypothetical is that maybe she's sitting like on the open hatches ledge, maybe feet dangling. I don't know. And then just whatever state of mind she was in, she had I'm going to slide down the trash like Alice in Wonderland.
Well, I told you guys about the time I was sleepwalking and I thought I was pumping water in my dream. And then in the morning, there's a pile of shampoo or conditioner on the floor from the conditioner bottle that had a pump.
Mm-hmm.
What if she had a dream she was on a water slide or something like that? Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
that doesn't sound completely plausible, but it also is not completely out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If she is having a dream, she's on a water slide or at a park or something,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. The thing I keep coming back to is the no fingerprints.
Yes.
Yeah.
That makes it so hard for me to think that it was her
Right.
by herself
Mm-hmm.
because there would
Yeah.
be fingerprints.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if she does think it's a slide or a water slide or something, you're not thinking, oh, I need to wipe this.
No.
Like on the outside, that just,
Right.
you wouldn't be thinking that if that's the dream state that you're in.
Right. And with what?
And how?
Yeah.
Like,
Like leaning
after.
back, reaching her.
Yeah.
No.
We also wonder, if there was this garbage bag, then what happened? She wasn't found, with any specific bag that clearly came from her apartment. Again, though, they didn't trace the trash that was down there. There were many bags. And, if she had been carrying trash, one might expect that it would fall with her. If she somehow managed to fall in on accident feet first. It doesn't make sense. Police noted a bunch of garbage around her, but they didn't investigate who any of it was.
Of course.
And then again, like we talked about the prints, an accident doesn't explain no prints, doesn't explain, the bruises that look like grip marks. If it was an Ambien accident, definitely, 1 in a million kind of accident. Not impossible, but extremely rare. Finally, theory 3, homicide or foul play. And, this is where you can't help but go, given all of the inconsistencies and everything in this case. The idea here is that someone was involved in putting Phoebe down that chute, either by force or after incapacitating her. The prime candidate, of course, would be her boyfriend, Ant, since He was the only one known to be around, and she was in his apartment. However, we must be clear we have no direct evidence he did anything. He would have been at work until 6 p.m., according to the key fob records. If foul play did happen, it either had to occur in that short window between 6:05 and 7 when she was found, or conceivably earlier in the day by someone else.
So it would have to have been someone who lives on her floor or higher, though, or who was there visiting someone.
Or that she knew.
If she let them up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
There was the whole fire alarm incident, which, there's no evidence that they're linked. But, what if someone was outside and came back in and just got on the elevator and she used hers to go back up?
Or someone
and they
wanted to get up there, couldn't, found a fire alarm, pulled it,
and
then snuck in when everybody else went back in.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
You wouldn't be checking everybody's key fob. People would just be getting in the elevator together.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
And, you said she had been drinking a lot, but, you said she had been like on a bender on the 30th. Maybe she got in an altercation with somebody, fight with somebody.
That would explain like the grip marks.
it would.
Yeah, that's true too.
If she was contemplating leaving her boyfriend and she was hitting on someone and then they followed her back and she turned them down and they got angry.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah. That's the thing. When you don't investigate it, there are a lot of possibilities and very few answers,
Mm-hmm.
which I hate.
Yep.
Let's talk about, if we want to go down, the Aunt theory road. Say Aunt comes home at 6:05 and finds Phoebe, intoxicated, maybe an argument-ready state. Maybe she's upset. They fight. Maybe she tells him she's leaving him. Remember, she'd been thinking about leaving. Things could have escalated. Conceivably, if he were angry or desperate, he could have harmed her. The bruises on her arms, possibly from him grabbing her in a confrontation. Maybe he knocked her out, or she was semi-conscious from drinking and the Ambien, and he panicked or something and decided to dispose of her via the chute to stage an accident or a suicide. The scenario is very sinister, but can't be outright dismissed. It would explain why no fingerprints, he could have wiped them, and perhaps why her pants pulled down if there was a struggle or he dragged her. But to play devil's advocate, it would be incredibly risky for him. The timing is tight. He'd have to subdue her, get her, limp or resisting into the chute. Not easy, even with two people, though easier than being on your own solo. He'd have to clean it all up, do that phone call to her dad, all within less than an hour. Also, there were neighbors. No one reported hearing a fight or a scream or someone being, stuffed in that chute. And I can't imagine that one would scream if somebody were trying to put you into that.
Yeah,
Right?
if you were still conscious.
Mhm.
Conscious.
Right.
I was thinking too with her straightener being on the ground and on. Maybe she was like in the bathroom getting ready and he came home and they got in an argument. Something, they had the broken glass. Maybe he hit her with something, knocked her out. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's different things that I was thinking about with that too.
Yeah, she could have been actively getting ready to go out to dinner.
The whole thing on their bed, though, is weird with like the pictures and the candles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That setup is weird
Yeah.
to
I
have.
wish there was more of an explanation for that.
Yeah.
Like a note or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like maybe he came home and saw things like that and was upset that she had done that. Maybe she was doing that as like a gesture to him.
Yeah, maybe.
And he got upset that she made a mess. Maybe something spilled wax or,
Yeah.
maybe something happened. You said he likes to be tidy.
Mm-hmm.
they got in an argument. She was intoxicated.
Yeah.
It also wasn't there blood on like the top of the chute.
Yeah. Yep.
So like if her head had hit something, and when you're getting like pushed in there, your head would rub up against the chute or something like that instead of like your hand reaching to grab it. That also could have been him. If
That
they
could
didn't
have
test
been,
it.
yeah, how he got blood like in their apartment. He didn't realize it was on his hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was using the
Touching
computer.
things. Yep.
That makes sense why it would be on the computer since it showed he was.
And
Yeah.
he didn't clean it up because he probably didn't notice.
Maybe
if
he
it was
didn't
just on his
notice.
hand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get hurt, but it came off of her.
Mhm.
Right.
So it could have all been her blood
But
just
he
on
put it
him.
around. Yeah.
Yeah.
on accident or,
Right. That would make sense.
Did
Why
they look
she-
at his search history?
Not that I found.
it.
No, because he.
How to get rid of a body?
What's at the bottom of
Oh.
a trash chute?
Yes.
Right.
That's what I was just thinking.
Mm-hmm. He probably used incognito mode.
Probably. That I don't. Probably.
Not in 2010.
Yeah, that's true.
But that could explain some of those things.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And if they were just talking or arguing
And it was an
and
accident
it was,
or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
and he hit her with something.
Right. And that's what I said earlier. Like, thought she was dead, panicked.
Yeah. That could have been it too. But like with the neighbors not hearing anything, like we talked about with like Christine Brinke, her neighbors didn't hear her being shot.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in such a luxury apartment, I mean, maybe they had pretty good soundproofing too. I
They
don't
could.
hear a lot of what goes on in my neighbors.
And I'm sure everyone's not friendly all the time.
Yeah.
People argue.
Right. Right.
So,
Or you've got TV on, you've got headphones on, you've got.
yeah, if you've
Mhm.
got the TV on and you're
Mhm.
talking loud,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
may not have to be yelling at each other to be in an argument.
Especially if they've broken up and gotten back together multiple times. Even if they would have maybe argued a little bit, people may not have seen it as strange if they'd heard it before. Or
Yeah.
even registered it because maybe it happened occasionally.
Often,
Yeah. Or even often. Yeah.
because
And-
it had been 4 breakups over the last 6 weeks.
Yep.
They could have had a lot of fights and people just
Mhm.
Tune
tune
it
it
out a
off
little bit.
because it's normal to come from their apartment.
Well, and the way it reads is, there's no reports of screaming, but did the police go and talk to everyone on that floor?
Right. That's what I'm wondering too.
Did they even ask them about specific times, or did they ask, did you hear anything at 6:30? And what if he did something earlier in the day?
Did you hear something before 6? And they said no. And it
Right.
was at 6:10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
It was later. They're out to dinner or something.
But I mean, he was in the apartment complex.
Oh, the
High
gym
rise.
is in the complex?
Mhm.
Okay. So he wouldn't have left and come back.
Right.
I think that she would have been,
But she went outside at noon. Never mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
It
Or
would
the
have
fire
had
alarm.
to have been
Yeah.
later.
But I mean, he would have had to basically sneak back in.
I mean, he could have come back middle of the day too.
Yeah.
If he took a long lunch and came up with everybody and didn't use his key.
Maybe
Just
he
like-
pulled the fire alarm.
That's what I was going to say. Like
There
Kayla
you
said,
go.
yeah. He would know where it was and what the protocol would be if everyone had to leave.
Or, yeah, he came back for lunch,
And people wouldn't notice him.
Because he lives there.
went back up with
Yeah.
her.
That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
A good theory.
Yes. So we've talked about him a lot, trying to think of all the other possibilities there. The key fob, gives us those times. It's just really a bummer about the CCTV.
Yes.
That would have been really nice to be able to look at. We have to think about, could it have been someone else? Could a third party have been involved? Maybe Phoebe had someone over, like we talked about, or encountered someone in the building. There's no evidence of any visitor, and there are no known enemies who would do such a thing. It just doesn't feel like a likely scenario. However, here's the twist. In cases like this, people always side-eye the intimate partner. And in fairness, statistically, it's often the partner in suspicious deaths. But we must note the coroner eliminated Ant as involved, and no evidence has surfaced to contradict his alibi. However, something that keeps internet sleuths buzzing: another girlfriend of Ant's died under strange circumstances years later. In 2018, a woman named Bailey Snyder, who dated Ant after Phoebe, was found dead, allegedly by suicide. Reports say hanging, while she was in the process of leaving that relationship. The inquest in that case also ruled it self-inflicted, but her family had lingering questions. It's just such a strange coincidence that two women linked to the same man died unnaturally within years of each other, both when they wanted to break up with him.
Yeah. No.
This another what? Harold?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
That's super sketchy.
and just clear. I don't know how you even conclusively can call that suicide or not, you know?
That's that changes things.
Yeah, that makes me question it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, I already was, but
Yeah.
even more so
Yeah.
now.
But I was like, it could have been someone else. Like, we don't know for sure, you know, if he came home at 6, but now I don't really feel that way.
Especially since we just did the Harold case where he had to.
Yeah.
Especially because the circumstances are the same. Like, if it was
Very
just
similar.
like, I don't know, she was going to leave him too, like the suicide thing, like it just being cleared away. It's all a little bit.
Too wrapped up too perfectly.
It's too
Yes.
convenient.
Yeah.
And, you know, everything with Phoebe is very closed and over and done by 2018.
Yeah. It's 8 years later.
Mhm.
Hmm.
They're not going back to that. So, yeah,
Not cool.
not good. I mean, you know, we're not saying that that's anything conclusive, but
That's
It
really
makes it
sketch.
so that you should at least
Yeah.
look into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
huge eyebrow raiser.
Little sketchy.
I mean, we had
Recess.
Yeah.
the Terry case where his roommate was repeatedly questioned over and over years and years and years.
Yes.
Like, it should at least be, let's rule you out.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes. And it's so quickly nailed down, and then you lose all the evidence. You lose.
Yeah.
Well, they don't even
records.
collect evidence.
No.
Like,
Right.
they didn't even collect like the blood in their apartment or anything like that.
Mhm. And I don't know a lot about the second girlfriend. We'll have to dig into that, but it sounds like it was ruled right away.
That would be an interesting follow-up part 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we might have to do that. I don't know how much information is out there.
Yeah.
I'll look into it. But that's pretty wild.
Mhm.
So we've got, you know, Phoebe and Bailey both wanting to leave Ant and both ending up, you know, in these completing suicide. It's just statistically that's not common. Of course, it doesn't prove any wrongdoing, but you can bet if this were a movie or a novel, the boyfriend would be looking really villainous right now. I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
And I
Be
think
looking
if
like
he
a
didn't,
suspect.
yes.
Mhm.
And I feel like if he didn't have those connections, he would be a suspect.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. Which is really sad if he was involved for both of those girls.
Yes.
Yeah.
The potential motive in a foul play theory could be something like rage or fear of abandonment. But again, the evidence to legally support homicide just was never gathered. If someone gave Phoebe a push or even put her in the chute, they left no concrete trace, which if that someone had law enforcement basically not looking hard, they got a big lucky assist there.
Mhm.
There are so many unanswered questions. To name a few that Phoebe's grandfather, Lorne, and others have asked repeatedly, what happened in that apartment between noon and 7? We just have this gap where only Phoebe was present, as far as we know. And what could have possibly triggered her to even go to that room in the first place? Why didn't police treat the apartment as a potential crime scene immediately? They didn't cordon it off. In fact, after a cursory look, one detective even allowed Ant's family to start cleaning up the apartment the next day. Before forensic tests were complete, yeah, that happened. Like, immediately it happened.
I hate that.
When did Phoebe actually go down the chute? The time of death isn't precisely known, partly because she was alive for a bit after landing and the autopsy couldn't pinpoint it. And since we have no CCTV, we don't know if it happened right before 7 or maybe earlier and she was hanging on down there. But likely it was near 7, given that, with this type of injury, she would have likely bled out within a few minutes. Why did no one hear anything? No scream, no crash, no bumping in the chute or anything. The compactor room was off of a basement area, so maybe it was isolated enough sound-wise, but, you still had to go through all of the floors. No one reported anything. But again, did they ask?
Yeah.
Or did they just say, well, no one said anything? That's a big difference. What about the phone calls? Was it really a coincidence that Aunt called Len just as he was calling Phoebe's phone? Or had Aunt somehow seen a missed call on a different device? He says pure coincidence, but it is odd.
A pretty close coincidence. Like 1 minute later.
I thought too, like an iPad.
Yeah.
If it was set up to show calls. I don't know. Maybe she had it, like if her phone was being repaired, maybe she had it so she could see phone calls on there.
Yeah.
But she did have the second phone.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, it's possible. Yeah.
If her iPad had cellular, I guess.
Well,
right?
I can't remember what 2010 was with iPads.
I know.
I think they still linked like iCloud account, I think. I don't know about phone calls. I don't know.
That's what I was thinking. I guess she would probably have to have cellular on there to see that.
And at least now you have to pay for that too.
Calls pop up on my computer.
Yeah.
And like the iPad.
Like missed calls. I get that on my computer too.
Yeah. Well, it like rings. So my phone, my watch, and my computer all ring.
Everything's ringing. So if you ever miss our call, it's intentional. Is that what you're saying?
That is what she just said.
That is what I'm saying.
Also, though, with that, why would you say it's coincidental?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you say, oh, I saw that Len had tried to call on the iPad, so I called him back?
That's true, too.
Like that's not like, I don't know.
Unless he saw it on the computer and he was trying to not have them look at his computer.
But I think what that means is that he had her phone.
I guess it depends on if it was a desktop computer, if it was a laptop.
Yeah. Or it's a coincidence.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
I think he had her phone. But if she
I
had
would
a Mac
guess
desktop,
they both have their own, though.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. That's true.
But is that why her phone ended up at a repair shop?
If he was on there searching how to get rid of evidence.
I don't know. And we just know that he's been fully cleared and there's no evidence.
Maybe.
Okay. The blood trail was any blood found between the apartment and the room where you dumped it. They found a spot on the 12th floor chute area, but nothing reported in the hallway or the elevator. If Phoebe walked or was carried to the chute while bleeding from a cut, was there drips? Was it cleaned up? What happened there? And could Phoebe have been unconscious or even dead before going down? If someone dumped her body, maybe she wasn't conscious to scream or resist. But then we come back to the fact that she did try to crawl out down below, which does suggest that she was alive and conscious at that point.
Yeah, she might have been unconscious when she went in, though.
Exactly.
Woke up
And
in
then
there.
Terrifying.
bumped all
nobody
around
thought
and got,
that.
if she got hit in the head and
Oh
then
my
regained
gosh.
consciousness.
Horrible.
Yeah.
One more big question. Did the system give up on finding the truth? The family fought for an inquest and then for an appeal of the coroner's findings. Originally, they couldn't appeal because the law in 2014 in Victoria had very narrow grounds to challenge a coroner. After public pressure from Phoebe's fall and media, in 2016, the Attorney General ordered a review. And by 2018, the law was changed to allow appeals on grounds of insufficient consideration of evidence. But despite this, as of now, 2025, no new inquest or change has occurred. The finding is still accidental death unless new evidence emerges. That's how it's going to stay in the records. It's so unsatisfying. It feels like if the investigation had been handled better from the start, secure the footage, test everything, interview all neighbors thoroughly, treat it as suspicious until proven otherwise, there might be clearer answers for Phoebe's family. Instead, we're left with a lot of reasonable doubt. And that's why this case has been the subject of, podcasts or TV segments, Reddit threads, you name it. It's the ultimate, did she or didn't she? And if not, who did? Personally, I fluctuate between thinking, maybe some kind of awful, terrible accident. You can get to that point when you think about intoxication and Ambien and sleepwalking, and maybe she thought the chute was something, portal, slide, Alice in Wonderland, any, number of things. And between thinking that someone must have been involved because so much doesn't add up, the fingerprints, there's just so many. On Tuesdays, I'm like, no one could get caught in a chute alone like that. Then the next day. But how would someone force her in without noise or being seen?
Yeah.
Right? It's maddening. The truth could be something in between. Maybe she decided to go down the chute as a cry for help, but halfway in, she panicked and someone, maybe Aunt, tried to pull her out, hence bruises, but couldn't, and she slipped down. It's kind of a half-baked theory that tries to merge both, or maybe an argument that turned physical. She ended up climbing in either to escape him or just some kind of maybe that suicidal gesture. I don't know. And he didn't stop her, maybe even egged her on, and then tried to cover his tracks after she went down. I mean, obviously, to be clear, this is wild speculation.
Yeah.
None of it is. What we do know is Phoebe's family never believed the official story. They continue to seek answers. Her grandfather, Lorne, basically became, the lead investigator on his own. He painstakingly went over every detail. He's largely responsible for bringing to light these inconsistencies. Without him pushing, this might have been swept under the rug entirely. So big kudos to Grandpa Lorne, retired detective sergeant, coming, sort of out of retirement for the ultimate personal case. Definitely one of the heroes of this tragic story, trying to do right by his granddaughter.
Yeah.
And, kudos to the people who put together Phoebe's fall. They really put heat on the authorities by exposing how sloppy this case was handled, which did lead to a public outcry. And thanks to those efforts, at least changes were made in the law, and maybe future cases will be investigated more thoroughly. But for Phoebe, we still have essentially an unsolved mystery, officially solved, but doesn't really feel like it.
No. Still too many lingering questions.
I agree. Listeners, what do you think? Are you persuaded by the official accidental ruling, or do you feel like there's something fishy in this trash chute? We'd love to hear your theories. This case definitely keeps us up at night, imagining how this beautiful young woman with her whole life ahead of her ended up in such a horrifying situation. Ladies, I think we went through all of our theories, but
so.
What do you think? Yeah.
I think I've said everything.
Yep.
I think we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're not
I think we're still
not
just
going
going to
to
go home and think
combine
about
Ambien
this.
with wine. Never do
And
that.
think forever.
We feel for Phoebe's family. They lost someone precious and have endured years of uncertainty. By all accounts, Phoebe was a bright spark, loyal, loving, larger than life. She deserves so much better than what happened to her.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. We hope one day that there's a definitive answer, but I don't know. They lost so much from the
It's
beginning.
hard,
Yeah.
with the other cases where they have blood that they just couldn't test,
And hold on to for years.
Yes.
Oh my gosh,
Whereas
yes.
in this case, it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. I think the only way they end up getting closure is a confession.
A confession.
Mm.
They have nothing to continue.
Yeah. No DNA evidence, no footage.
Test on.
Nothing.
Exactly, Kayla. I was thinking that too. Like, I don't think that they can take this any further because
Yeah.
they got rid of everything that they could have looked into, basically.
Oh, yeah, because it's not
No.
an investigation.
It's closed.
It's
No.
Case closed.
Closed.
Yeah. So they don't need to save it.
Very unfortunate.
I know. That part
I
hurt.
feel bad for her family that they'll never get that closure. They'll always have that what if,
Mhm.
or
Right.
what if we had looked into this? What if they had done this to investigate further at the
Mhm.
beginning before we lost all
And
that?
then the question of what happened.
Yeah.
Why
It is.
sad.
Well, on that note, thanks for sticking with us through this wild case. We know it was a long 2 episodes, but we did promise you a deep dive, and we did it. As always, we'll post our source links and references in the show notes. I know we referenced a lot of articles and reports, and shout out to those sources. You can find our sources on our blog. If you go to crimeclueless.com and go to contributor section, you can find our blog there. We'd love to hear your comments, especially if you have a theory that we didn't mention. You can reach out to us on social media at crimeclueless or email us crimeclueless@gmail.com. If you enjoy our podcast, we'd love if you would rate or review. 5 stars really helps other people find our blend of mystery and our sarcasm. Oh,
Our wonderful
Yes.
humor,
Yes.
you mean?
exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you. And remember, refuse to be clueless, careless, or caught off guard.
Not today, murderers.
Okay.